Dear students, I am Dr. Kiran Deshwal, Assistant Professor English. In this video lecture, I will teach you the sonnet Went to the Sessions of Sweet Silent Thought, composed by William Shakespeare. Students, we have done one more sonnet of Shakespeare in our last video. Let me note to the marriage of true minds. In that video lecture, I told you that William Shakespeare wrote 154 sonnets and the pattern of his sonnet is same. That is, Shakespearean sonnets, also known as English sonnets, consist of three quatrains and a couplet. As I told you, sonnet is a short poem of 14 lines. So, sonnet is a poem of 14 lines. Shakespearean sonnet is a poem of 14 lines consisting of three quatrains and a couplet, and the rhyming scheme is also same: AB AB for the first quatrain, CD CD for the second quatrain, EF EF for the third quatrain, ZZ for the last quatrain. And this is sonnet number 30. Before starting the sonnet, let us talk about its theme and its central idea. Sonnet 30 was written by English poet and playwright. Shakespeare also is a dramatist. He wrote 37 plays. So Sonnet 30 was written by the English poet and playwright William Shakespeare. And this sonnet was first published in 1609 as part of a sequence of 154 sonnets. Sonnet 30 was most likely written in the early 1590s, and at this time Shakespeare was a young dramatist recently arrived in London. He just arrived to London. Despite its author's youth and inexperience, the poem broods on life's disappointments. In this sonnet, we see the disappointments of life which a person faces. For the speaker of the poem, even thinking about such sorrows brings them back with all their original pain and power. Whenever we think our downs in our life, whenever we think our pains in our life, we become gloomy. Only one thing offers solace and comfort in the face of such pain: remembrance. So let us talk about the themes. First of all, first theme is the pain of memory. In Sonnet 30, the speaker, our poet, rehasses all the injuries. He recalls, he remembers all the injuries, all the pains and disappointments of life he faced, like dead friends, lost pleasures, squandered opportunities, every lost thing. He thinks about everything which he had lost. For the speaker, neither memory nor time itself diminishes the pain of these losses. These losses are everlasting with us. Nothing can reduce their pain. Just to think about them brings them back in their full power and difficulty. Whenever we think about that, again we feel gloomy and in pain. Indeed, the speaker suggests that memory itself is a powerful source of pain. The speaker of Sonnet 30, that is our poet, has a lot of regrets and disappointments. And as soon as the speaker starts to reminisce, remembering about things past, about the events of past, about his past, these regrets and disappointments come flocking in. They reflexes against in front of his eyes, overwhelming the speaker, and he becomes emotional. The speaker broods over. Our poet thinks about the lack of many a thing I sought. The things which he had once are not now with him, so he feels their absence. In other words, about missed opportunities. He thinks about the opportunities which he missed, which he could not take. The speaker also weeps over old friends. He weeps in the memory of his best friends who had died now, long dead. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hide in death's dateless nights. The speaker grieves, loss, loves too, loves long since cancelled voice. The first 12 lines of the poem means the first three quatrains of the poem thus continue a long exhaustive list of all the things that the speaker grieves and regrets. These 12 lines describes the things over which our poet weeps and mourns and regrets. Strikingly, these disappointments and sorrows don't seem to have faded with time. This sorrow is continued with our poet. Time usually takes the sting out of grief and disappointment, but that's not the case with the speaker. Usually it happens that everything, every pain heals with time. We forget everything with time, but with speaker it is opposite. Whenever he recalls, he remembers all these pains, they come alive to his memory. The speaker no sooner thinks of some forebemoan mourn than the speaker has to new pay as if not paid before. Then he has to weep, he has to regret again. In other words, the speaker endures the pain all over again, and it feels just as fresh and sharp as before. It is as though no time has passed at all. He thinks like nothing has passed. The first 12 lines of the poem are thus dark and full of despair. So, in these 12 lines, we feel despair in the mind of the speaker. He is sad, he is upset, he is not happy. The speaker occupies a world in which no one ever really heals. He says that nothing can reduce your pain, it is everlasting. Where hurt and pain last forever, your pain remains with you forever without subsiding or becoming bearable. And reflecting on the past, remembering it only brings that pain back with all its power and difficulty. So, whenever you remember your pain, your things of past, the regret comes to you, the pain comes to you. The power of love. Now, your work is to see in the poem whether you find this theme there or not. Second, this poem shows the power of love. The speaker of Sonnet 30, William Shakespeare, spends most of the poem in despair. In this poem, we just see despair, obsessively meditating on past disappointment, regrets, and sorrows. So the speaker can't find any relief. He regrets, he weeps for his love, he weeps for the friends he had lost. So this poem shows the power of love. Now, let us begin our poem. Sonnet, it is sonnet 30. Please remember that it is sonnet 30 from those 154 sonnets, and the title is When to the Sessions of Sweet Silent Thought. When to the Sessions of Sweet Silent Thought. The word session in this poem we have in this poem we have court vocabulary. First of all, sessions. When to the session is generally happens in the court. Whenever a case is heard, the time period of that particular case is known as session. When to the session of sweet silent thought. So here William Shakespeare, here we have alliteration in sweet silent. So William Shakespeare wants to say that whenever a time came in our life when we think about our past, and whenever I think about the sweet silent thoughts of the past, I summon up. Whenever I am free, I think about I think about beautiful things, and at that time period, at that session, what I do in a court session, witness are called. So I summon up. Summon up means called. बुलाना, गवाह को बुलाना. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought I summon up remembrance. So, whom do the poet calls? The poet calls remembrance of things past. He recalls his past. वो अपने भूतकाल की यादों को बुलाते हैं. I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought. I sigh, I grieve, I cry. I cry for the lack. I cry for the absence of many a thing I sought. I cry for the absence for the things which I had once, but I don't have now. So I regret. I weep on their lost. I sigh. I feel like crying on the absence, on the loss of those things. And with old voice, new wail, my dear times ways. And with old voice, but though those are my old pains, those are my old uh, losses, but whenever I remember them, they become new, and they my dear times waste, they waste my time. I start weeping. So went to the sessions of sweet silent thought. See the rhyming scheme. First thought, first in first line we have thought, second line we have past, in third line we have sought, in fourth line we have waste. So thought, sought, past, waste. So here we have the rhyme scheme: A B A B, thought, past, sought, waste. So A B A B. This is the first. This is the first stanza. Now we have the second quatrain. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hid in death's dateless night. In death's dateless night, we have so many metaphors in this poem. In the first quatrain, we have sessions, and in the second quatrain, we have death's dateless night. Here, the poet is saying that whenever I think about my past, then what I do? Then can I drown an eye? Drown an eye means I weep, I shed tears. मैं रोता हूँ. Unused to flow. My eyes, which are dry, they get moisture. I become emotional and I weep. For whom I weep? I weep for precious friends. I weep for my best friends who are not alive now, who are dead. I weep for them who are hidden in death's dateless night. Death's dateless night means they are no more here. They are not in this world. They are in darkness. So they are in death's dateless night. Dateless because they will not come back. So I weep for them and weep afresh love's long since cancelled voice. Cancelled voice, these voice means sorrows, दुख. ये वो दुख हैं जो बहुत पहले के हैं. But whenever I remember these sorrows, uh, these losses, एंड वीप एफ्रेस, तो मेरे को नए सिरे से रोना पड़ता है. एंड वीप एफ्रेस लव्स लॉन्ग सिंस कैंसल्ड. लॉन्ग सिंस, ये बहुत पहले के दुख हैं. वो दोस्त मुझे बहुत पहले छोड़ के जा चुके हैं, पर जब भी मुझे उनकी याद आती है मैं नए सिरे से रोने लगता हूँ. इट हैपन्स whenever you remember some dead person, some person who has died, whenever you remember him or her, it brings tears to your eyes and mourneth the expanse of many a vanished sight. And I mourn any, I weep on the expense of many a vanished sight, or for the sights of those who have vanished, जो कि disappear हो गए हैं. Okay, so the rhyme scheme for the second quatrain is flow, night, वो, sight. Flow, night, वो, sight. A, B. A, B, A, B was the rhyme scheme for the first quatrain. For the second quatrain, we have C, D, C, D. Now come to our third quatrain. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone? Again we have grievances, शिकायतें. Then can I grieve? Then I feel pain. Then I feel sorrow. Then I feel sad. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, which are not present now. उन शिकायतों के लिए मैं दुख उठाता हूँ जो अब नहीं है. Foregone past things जो बीत चुकी हैं. And heavily from woe to woe tell ever. And my thoughts, things come in my mind. And which things? Woe to woe. सारे एक एक करके सारे दुख वो गिनाती हैं. The sad account of four bemoaned mourn. And which comes into, what comes into mind? Again we have a here account is a word from banking sector, bank sector. So the sad account, this is the sad account of four bemoaned mourn. फोर बी मोएंड, जिसके ऊपर मैं पहले ही दुख मना चुका हूँ. Which I knew pay again. Pay, we have a word from banking sector, commercial sector. Which I knew pay, like I weep afresh, मुझे फिर से रोना पड़ता है नए सिरे से. Similarly, which I knew pay, I have to pay again, as if not paid before. Though I have wept for these losses, for these regrets, for these disappointments earlier also, but again I feel sorry for all those persons who are not now with me, and in their memory I start weeping. I feel pain. But if the I feel sad, but if the while I think on thee, but the positive thing is that always and always Shakespeare's poems ends with a positive note. So he says that this is the concluding couplet. Let us see the rhyming scheme of the last quatrain. The rhyming scheme for the last quatrain is foregone, tell over, mourn, before. EF, EF. And in the couplet he says that, but if the while I think on thee, dear friend, he says that whenever I think about you in this session of sweet silent thought, in the activity of remembering the things of past, dear friend, he is remembering to his friends. As we know, he is shedding tears, he is weeping in the memory of his friends. All losses are restored. Here we have a paradoxical statement. On the one hand, he says that I have suffered a lot, I have received a lot of pain, I have lost so many friends, so there are so many losses in my life, I lost a lot of things in my life. But whenever I remember my friend and whenever I weep in their memory, it seems to me that all those losses are restored and sorrows end, and thus this is the end of my sorrows. So here we have a beautiful ending of this poem, that whenever I remember my friends I feel sorrow, but whenever I weep in their memory my sorrows end, my all losses are restored. So let us see the questions which can come into your mind. What is the message of sonnet 30? So the central theme, message, the central theme. The central theme of the sonnet is the poet's pervasive sense of loss. The poet is thinking about his loss of friend, loss of things, loss of opportunities. I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old voice knew well my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hide in death's dateless night? Then what type of poem is sonnet 30? So sonnet 30 is a Shakespearean sonnet. It's a Shakespearean sonnet. It follows a strict rhyme scheme. The first 12 lines form three rhyming quatrains and follow ABAB pattern. The poem also follows an equally strict meter, iambic pentameter. The poem is written in iambic pentameter. What is the mood of sonnet 30? So, the mood of sonnet 30 is the tone. The tone of this poem is the feeling of regret, of sadness. In lines 3 to 5, Shakespeare says, I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old voice knew well my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow? So this shows sadness because he feels like he wasted a lot of time in his life. So that's all. Thanks for watching.